Question number 2, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, does he agree that due to inflation, no new spending in the upcoming budget is the equivalent of a cut in real terms?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, it depends on which part of the budget, and I'm not trying to be clever about it. Some services will continue to get somewhere near an inflation adjustment, such as health and education. Inflation adjustments will continue to income support programs, such as national super and benefits, which are very large components of the government's annual budget. There will be services who will have no increase in spending, and that means they will be cut in real terms. We have a strong expectation that everyone supplying public services needs to focus on providing more services for less money, and that's not a new message.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just focusing on one of the programs that the Minister has identified, how does he intend to cut $250 million from working for families without affecting middle-income earners when he himself pointed out in 2008 that, quote, taking higher income families out of working for families saves very little money?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is, as the government has signalled over the last month or so, we have been looking at whether it's possible to restrict the very broad scope of working for families to higher income families. And the member may well be right that savings from that aren't significant.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it not the case that in order to save $250 million from working for families, a number that he's floated previously, he would have to cut well into the middle income brackets, possibly removing all of some of the entitlements to families on a combined income of more than $60,000?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure where the $250 million figure came from. The member will just have to wait for the budget to see what progress the government has made, but as I think I said in the House yesterday, there's unlikely to be radical changes to income support programs, including working for families.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, will he therefore rule out cutting working for families for someone on the average wage of $50,000 a year?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the member will just have to be patient, but he can be reassured that the government is taking a very considered approach, and we will continue to protect the most vulnerable and help New Zealanders through recession.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree that the alternative to his government's spending cuts and Labor's proposal to increase debt is actually a third option, which is to introduce a small temporary levy to fairly spread the cost of earthquake recovery across a large number of New Zealanders who could afford it?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that is the alternative, and I want to compliment the Greens on taking a principled position over the levy, unlike the Labor Party who aren't quite sure where they're going on it. The government has outlined the reasons why it doesn't prefer to put a levy in place.
Point of supplementary question, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Can the Minister of Finance confirm that John Key promised, quote, there will be no changes at all to working for families under an incoming national government, end quote, and does he intend to honour that promise?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government is going to continue with the same approach it's had since it came into government, and that is to protect the income support measures that were put in place. We have in past budgets trimmed those at the edges because we believe that we need to stop the rapid rise in the costs of those measures, because that would be unsustainable.
Point of order, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the question was very straightforward. Can he confirm that promise was made, and does he intend to honour it? That answer did not answer either of those questions.
Well, the problem is it might sound that there's a simple answer to the question, but I think the Minister did address the question the member asked, and clearly decisions have not yet been made. I think he's made that very clear in his answers that decisions haven't been made on the matter, and I can't force him to be more precise when decisions haven't been made. That's the dilemma I have as Speaker. I'll hear the Honourable Member, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Speaker, the primary question there was, can he confirm that promise was made? That decision has been made. Either he can confirm it or he can't, or he doesn't know. Any one of those answers would have done, but no effort at all was made to address any of them.
Order. The member will reflect that there were two parts to the question he asked, and the Minister is only obliged to address one part of a supplementary question. And the second part asked whether that alleged promise was to be kept or not, and the Minister pointed out that decisions are yet to be made, that they, and I can't force him to be more precise than that on a question like that. Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Speaker, Minister of Finance, in considering his options in how to pay for the earthquake, what would hurt a family with an income of $60,000 a year more permanently losing $100 a week from working for families, or a part of their $100 a week, or temporarily paying $3.50 a week in an earthquake levy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Oh, well, Mr Speaker, with respect to an earthquake levy, for the kind of numbers we're talking about with the Christchurch earthquake, you'd actually have to have a pretty significant levy on for quite a long time. Now, I wouldn't want to contest the members' numbers, but my guesses would be a lot higher than $3.50 a week. With respect to his issues around working for families, I mean, the government will make decisions based on the merits of those programs, on fairness, the amount of debt the government has, and the other spending priorities.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Isn't it true that the bill for the earthquake recovery will be passed on to New Zealanders one way or another, and that the most compassionate way to pass on the cost is to spread the burden across a large number of people, each paying a small amount, rather than concentrating the burden on a small number of working families who are already struggling to make ends meet?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, I can assure the member that there is nothing contemplated about changing working for families that would go anywhere near paying the earthquake bill, so equating the two is simply not correct. Paying the bill will be spread across all New Zealanders in a number of forms, ranging from the EQC levy, higher insurance premiums for homeowners, and higher debt obligations that will have to be met by today and future taxpayers.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order,
I seek leave to table a document prepared by the Parliamentary Library that seeks to identify where you would have to cut working for families in order to save $250 million.
Leave the sort to table that document. Is there any objection? There's no objection? There is no objection. Question number 3, David Bennett.